they lingered on this eye as if it was like a feet, and like it looks like the most cartoon fake, like there's practically brainstem attached to it. Like it is.
I misunderstood what you meant there and thought you were doing a Quentin Tarantino reference.
No! Foot fetishists, we're sorry to disappoint. This isn't that kind of podcast. Welcome to My Brother, My Brother's Friend and Me, a podcast where two ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Michael.
And this week, we watched the 2009 movie adaptation of Dan Brown's heretical thriller, Angels and Demons. Before we speculate on the best way to destroy the Vatican, please be sure to like and comment on this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter at MBMBFandme. Gentlemen, how are we feeling about this one?
Thank the Lord above, you finally gave us a movie.
Yeah, I felt bad about all the terrible movies I made you watch, so this one actually had plot and cinematography in it.
And a Hanks. we got a Hanks, and I was just so happy that it was viewable because you were in movie jail for a while.
Rightfully so.
I was thoroughly impressed that I liked the movie as much as I did. I have plenty to say about it and plenty of criticism, but so I have to confess, in my head, and I don't think this is uncommon, I kind of have melded the Angels and Demons / Da Vinci Code world in with National Treasure, so they're just like one extended universe for me.
They're pretty similar, yeah.
So they just all happen in the same world. So I really was expecting Nick Cage, even though I knew this wasn't the franchise. I'm like, oh, he's going to be in some point. And I'm kind of glad he wasn't, because he should be in film jail after our last film with him in it.
Yep.
I have something I need to admit that I wanted to say for the podcast. I legit thought that I mixed up this movie and National Treasure. And thought that this was... So when you were recommending it, you were like, have you guys seen it? And I'm like, yeah, of course I've seen
National fucking Treasure. What are you talking about?
I'm a history major. They make us. So while watching it, I went, oh. I goofed. So I had not seen this movie previously.
Yeah. This is actually, I think, the third time I've seen this movie, because I watched it twice in theaters when I was a freshman in high school, which is very funny. But yeah, it's, again, my background with the whole Dan Brown universe is that I've read, probably half of his books. I was just weirdly into Dan Brown when I was younger. I should probably go back and reread them, because everybody says he writes like shit, which is very funny. But, I thought they were cool. There's one where they have to break into the NSA, and there's assassins that use environmental guns that turn their snow into bullets. So it's pretty wild. And this movie's no exception. It's fucking crazy. But we'll get into it. Let's start with the beginning. It's a very good place to start. So, this opens with a shot of this Latin chanting in the background, and this scene from the Vatican where there's a bunch of cardinals, and they take the Pope's ring, the ring of the fisherman, and they make a big X on it to signify that the Pope has died. So we are immediately introduced to the fact that the previous Pope is dead, and they're about to start doing the process of conclave, which is the Catholic way of choosing a new Pope. There's news reporters in the background talking about how they're shocked by the death of this progressive and beloved Pope, which made me chortle, because there's never been a progressive Pope. But sure. Whatever.
Literally never.
Yeah.
I did cheer when I saw Ewan McGregor on my screen, so...
Well, to be fair, we all should do that, just in general.
Yeah.
Because he is the real National Treasure.
I was astonished because I looked it up, because I was like, that priest looks really familiar. I wonder where I've seen him before. And I was like, oh, it's Obi-Wan. Hell yeah. Also
love
in
Ewan McGregor.
Moulin Rouge for you people of culture out there.
Yes.
They don't listen to this.
They don't listen to this, but that's okay.
Only garbage people like this podcast.
I agree with that. That's fair. Sorry, listeners, you have bad taste. So then we cut to the Large Hadron Collider in, I think it's Geneva.
Yeah.
And we are introduced to our first protagonist. Her name is Vittoria. And she is like talking with her scientist coworker slash priest partner. I believe his name is Silvano. And, you know, they're all talking about like how the collider is not really built to make antimatter in these quantity, but like they're gonna do it anyway because they're fucking scientists and they're crazy. There's just a lot of cool looking computer screens and graphics, and you know, I found this on a website that did not have the French subtitles, so when I had to go and rent it from YouTube, I was like, oh good. So that was worth the $4 I paid because they're still saying meaningless bullshit. So I guess that's good.
So can we just spend one moment to talk about Vittoria and the fact that her name is Vittoria Vetra, which is the most Marvel cinematic name I have ever heard. Like, I just am waiting for her to start a superhero team. And it's all people with alliterative names. It is the most ridiculous thing ever. I just started calling her Vivi in my notes, so
that rules. Yeah.
Can we also, like, this is not a science podcast because I'm science illiterate. Dark matter don't work like that.
No, in fact, it was such a poor explainer of antimatter that CERN, the like actual organization for nuclear power in the EU, put out an explainer on antimatter and like the God particle, literally all of it, because they were like, you got none of this right.
Yeah, like they had to like put an FAQ on their website that was like, hey, Dan Brown fucked it up really bad, please don't add us.
Yeah.
That's my goal as a creator, to make something so incorrect that a government organization has to go, no.
But not just a government organization, an international organization. They're like, Jesus Christ, like, we have to
Literally.
now explain antimatter.
It's so funny. The backlash to this book and the Da Vinci Code is just hysterical. Like, if you read anything, like, Dan Brown's like, this is all 100% real. And everyone else is like, no, it's not. You just made shit up. But it's just so funny to see everybody dunking on him. Anyway, they turn up the Hadron Collider. We see some, cool graphics, and, like, there's just, like, particles just blasting into each other. And then we see 3 big chunks of antimatter go into these cool-looking canisters. And the priest is like, wow, it's on a scale we've never seen before. We're in God's hands now, Victoria. And then Victoria's like, wow, this is so cool, we did it. I'm going to go check on our cool new antimatter. And, like, as she's walking to go check on it, there's, like, a guy in a janitor's outfit who clearly just murdered her partner, just, like, walking out really shiftily. And she's like, oh, okay, that was weird. Anyway, and, like, she puts her chin on this, like, eye scanning device, does a retinal scan. And when she, like, takes it off, she's like, oh, there's some spaghetti sauce on this. That's weird. And then, of course, when she comes into the room, she finds the eyeball on the floor. Her partner's eye's been, torn out, and the one canister of antimatter has obviously been stolen.
They lingered on this eye as if it was, like, a feat. And, like, it looks like the most cartoon fake, like, there's practically brainstem attached to it. Like, it is...
I misunderstood what you meant there and thought you were doing a Quentin Tarantino reference.
No! Foot fetishists, we're sorry to disappoint. This isn't that kind of podcast.
We have to just immediately move on because the things I want to say are not good.
Yep. Anyway, we cut to the Harvard swimming pool where hot Professor Robert Langdon is swimming laps. Robert Langdon is, of course, very similar to, what's his name, in Left Behind, Rayford Steele, where he's, like, clearly an author stand-in. He's like, yeah, I'm a sexy 40-year-old Harvard professor, and I'm really smart. And, like, he's like, I noticed that you're from the Vatican because I looked at your briefcase and it had the Vatican symbol on it. It's like, good one, Sherlock.
In that scene, they have the wrong person in the Speedo. Like, that was the first thing I noticed, is I'm like, this is the wrong setup here. Like, love you, Tom Hanks, but like, we could have skipped over
We
that.
didn't need that. But it is extremely like on brand for Dan Brown. Anyway,
I
Yeah.
don't want to dunk on National Treasure Tom Hanks. Has he ever been the guy you want to see in a Speedo?
he's not
He's
unattractive.
attractive, but I'm not like, get those clothes off, my dude. I'm more like, take care of me and tell me I'm doing okay, my dude.
I mean, I have a bit of a like rant on Tom Hanks, and it's nothing against him. It's actually like very much in his defense, but I have to save it for later because this film sent me on a rabbit hole in which, if you flash to me at 2 a.m. This morning, I was on a Wikipedia page of conspiracy theories with about 37 tabs open. So
Well, to be fair, you just have normally 35 to 36 tabs open at any given moment.
I was
okay,
wondering
I closed
why.
like 20 of them.
I was wondering why Google, because Michael borrowed my account to watch this movie, why Google sent me an email at 3 a.m. that's like, "Hey, bud, are you doing okay? This isn't you."
It's just me.
I was like, "No,
It
it's
was
not.
me.
You're right." Anyway, so Michael, or not Michael, God, Robert Langdon is like, "Hey, Robert Langdon talks to this Vatican cop who's like, "Hey, I've been sent to talk to you," and he's like, "Oh, are you finally gonna let me into the Vatican archives to write my cool book about the Illuminati?" And he's like, "No, but it's weird that you brought that up. Here's a picture of the word Illuminati that you can read upside down and normal ways." And then Robert Langdon's like, that's okay, I guess." Sure. Anyway,
So, like, I don't want to call both me and my brother out, but we've had a lifelong dream that a distant relative would die and then leave us, like, that we've never met, and then would leave us a note that's like, "You are now welcome to the free hand chronicles. You are
I'm letting you go with this one.
a born member."
some Westing game shit, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, every time I see, like, the Illuminati or, like, Freemasons, I'm like, I always ask my parents, I'm like, do we have, like, an uncle that we don't talk to anymore? Or, like, but no, none of our relatives are cool and won't,
And none of them are Illuminati members.
and will die and invite us in on their dying will.
I was going to take that in a different direction because he reminds me of you and I in a way of how he lectures people on topics he finds interesting without them asking.
Yeah, Robert's a
Yeah.
dick.
Yeah, if you just subbed in, like, voter suppression in Northern Virginia, or how Robert E. Lee was a bad general, you've really got the Michael Josh combo.
Oh, great. Anyway, this cop tells this professor in the swimming pool that 4 of the cardinals have been kidnapped. These are the Preferiti, the cardinals that are like supposedly like next in line to be pope. And he says that each of them will be executed starting from 8 to 11, with something worse happening at midnight, and he's got to come to the Vatican right away. And then like it's very funny because like they're explaining that like Robert Langdon's like, "Wait, why is the Vatican trying to help me out? Don't they hate me from that time that I exposed Jesus's horny secret?" And they're like, "Yes, yeah." So be on your best behavior.
I do love that they still call it Jesus' horny secret.
Yeah, I don't know why Pope John Paul canonized that in his dogma, but like, it was a wild time.
So I do appreciate how exposition heavy the first like 30 minutes of this film are. Like I feel like I kept pausing to take notes because I'm like, "No, you guys, you don't need to keep talking about the plot. Like just put a pin in that for 30 seconds." But no, they really just like roll with it, and it's every moment we get a new layer.
Well, Dan Brown's original hope was that he would just get Tom Hanks to read his book on camera.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the plot is so convoluted that I think it does need this over explanation. So, I mean, I don't hate it, but I completely understand the criticism.
Just out of curiosity, I don't understand how they pick a new pope. Is it like rock paper scissors competition inside, and then they light up the smoke? Are they just smoking weed in there? And then one of
Yu-Gi-Oh
them,
battle.
it's a Yu-Gi-Oh battle.
So, the god cards were actually,
The Trinity.
Yeah, the Trinity, yeah. Anyway, we see the College of Cardinals going into the, I think they're going into the Sistine Chapel. They're like getting ready to get locked in there to select the Pope. And they're like, they're putting all their cell phones and their cameras like going through the security screen. It's really
and their
funny.
Cigarettes.
Yeah. I love that.
Okay, one of them's got too many knives and they have to keep going through the little metal detector.
So I have to ask, if you were one of the cardinals, what do you think would be in your little brown paper bag of like worldly things?
God. So I would have a rosary. Then I would have a...
You're allowed to keep that, I think.
No.
I don't think that's worldly.
That's a good point, yeah.
Ooh, so naughty.
No, it's
sometimes do you read the Bible when you're supposed
bad
to be
boy
sleeping?
Aaron.
Yeah, shut up.
Ooh, that's why he's the heartthrob of the group.
Okay, so I would have like a bottle of like on a keychain, a bottle of sriracha sauce,
yeah,
and also a combat knife.
Are you just upset that we made fun of you so long for the rosary that you wanted to sound cool?
No, the combat knife is a reference to the fact that in 2016 I started carrying a combat knife because of racism.
That's fair and valid.
What would be in your brown paper bag?
Oh, I think it'd just be really funny if, like, it was just, like, a little sampler of different drugs. Just, like, I don't use them. I'm a man of God. But, like, you never know when you just need a little bit of black tar heroin. Like, not a lot.
I would 100% have an airplane bottle of tequila that I just forgot I had on me. I would definitely have my phone. I would have like 3 sets of headphones for some reason, but no charger. And you know what? I'd probably have like crystals or something on me that I'm like, oh fuck, this is a part of this religion. I gotta hide them really fast.
No, it's Mary's knucklebone. Definitely not some amethyst I got at a museum gift shop.
Can we just talk about... I know this isn't the right time. Why are Catholics so horny for dead things?
They're cool? I don't know.
There really is like a like gothness to Catholicism in like a really cool way. Like I'm into it.
Yeah, Catholicism really needs to lean into the goth aspect more. There's definitely at least one church in Spain that's like built out of bones or some shit. Y'all gotta look that up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there is.
Yeah. Let's see. Anyway, God, we're so early in the movie. So Robert is brought to the Vatican. He meets Olivetti, the super cop, who I don't know what his jurisdiction is, but he's telling them like, okay, the Swiss Guard are in charge of this, but like the Italian police are also involved, but also the Vatican police are involved. I think Olivetti's the Vatican police guy. Anyway, he's introducing Robert to the Vatican, and it's while he's walking through, Robert gives this fucking anime-ass lecture explaining the fucking Pius IX dick purge on all the statues. And then Olivetti's like, are you anti-Catholic? And he's like, no, I'm anti-vandalism. Like, oh, shut the fuck up, dude.
You're right, it is so, like, anime. Like, I feel like I wanted him to have an Ace Attorney moment. Objection!
I would have completely, like, this would have been my favorite movie ever if he just did that. Oh my god, I'm upset he didn't.
He gets pretty close a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They go to Swiss Guard HQ, and we're introduced to Commander Richter of the Swiss Guard. I mean, he definitely does look like a white supremacist, so, like, I get why he's cast as the bad guy. But he's like, I don't like Robert Langdon because of his Da Vinci Code bullshit. This is where they also introduce Vittoria to Robert, and Vittoria's like, okay, so here's the bad thing, because like they show him this camera, and they're like, okay, this guy who kidnapped the cardinals has placed this remote camera somewhere in the Vatican, and it's pointing at this canister of antimatter that's gonna run out of battery at midnight, and it's gonna blow up the whole Vatican City. And Vittoria's like, this is the God particle research we were going into. And everybody's like, oh, God particle, wow, you're a heretic. And they're like, no, it's not like that. And then Robert Langdon, for some reason, feels the need to jump in on this physics conversation as a symbologist. That's his official title. It's not a real thing, but he's a symbologist officially. And he's like, yeah, because they're reading from this ransom note, and he's like, yeah, Vatican City will be consumed by light, by which I mean an explosion.
This scene really like reminded me what we were getting into. So like I was laughing through a large part of it because it was so ridiculous, and I hate the trope of like the professor knows it all and like is all knowing and is an expert in every field. And if someone is a doctor, they are somehow a medical professional, but also a historian, and they speak 6 languages. And I'm like, look, I know people who have PhDs, and they are not brilliant in every
They're
field.
largely dumb as hell, is the thing. I've met academics, we're dumb as hell.
Like, as someone studying history, if you ask me a question that doesn't revolve around the War of 1812, I don't know it.
So you're not going to explain antimatter to us?
Michael, I am not 100% sure if I believe in scorpions.
Oh, damn it. Oh, okay, so go ahead.
I did have a realization too about this part in the film, and maybe this is more of a knock on Hollywood, this era, but I wrote a note. There's no way this film ends up giving a black character speaking role and having anyone but the doctor be a woman, right? And I'm prophetic because not a single black person spoke a single word, and no 2 women spoke to each other for even a moment, and there are only 2 women characters, one of them named.
Who is the other woman?
Like literally the tour guide, and
oh yeah, Jesus.
Title is tour guide.
Yeah, crushing the Bechdel test here. Anyway, so they're talking about history, and then they're like, man, why would somebody steal the 5 Illuminati brands, which firstly is a very stupid legend to have. He's like, rumor has it there's 5 Illuminati brands that relate to earth, air, fire, and water, just like an Avatar, but there's a secret 5th brand and nobody knows what it is. Anyway, they're going to brand these kidnapped cardinals, and that's going to be like their evil plot. And then Casey's like, it's revenge for La Purga. And then everyone's like, what are you talking about? And Robert's like, geez, you guys don't read your own history, do you? Firstly, Robert, of course they don't. What are you talking about?
You know how bad Catholic history makes the Catholics look?
It's very embarrassing.
Do you know how many crusades they went on?
Do you know how many crusades we lost?
All of them. Even the ones they won.
I think number 1 went pretty well.
No, they didn't. That is some Catholic propaganda.
Which is the one that
right
where Jerusalem got conquered and we killed a bunch of Muslims. I thought that was 1 or 2.
That was 1, but to get there, they were like, what if we killed a ton of Jews in Europe? And
my favorite crusade is the one where they were like, Jerusalem seems so far. What if we just sat Constantinople instead?
That's number 4,
like,
right?
Relatable.
Whomst amongst us hasn't gotten lost?
Not even lost. It's like you get halfway to your destination and are like, nah, I'd rather stop here.
I'd rather.
Well, it's almost like if you got in your Uber to go to a bar and instead you sacked the Uber.
So I have to, there's no better place to put this in, but when I was explaining Vivi's whole explanation in my notes, I forgot the name of her colleague who died. So in my notes, he will forever be known as Eyeless Dave.
Why? Come on.
Well, because he lost his eye, and because he is the religious figure who God obviously hates, seeing as he got killed right away.
All
so
right.
Eyeless Dave.
Dave is now our whipping boy. All right.
Out of curiosity, who is more pretentious? The main character of this movie or the professor from the first God's Not Dead?
Ooh. I think probably God, ooh, I don't know, because God's Not Dead guy like does have like a come to Jesus moment after he's hit by a car, whereas Robert
And
Langdon's
his
just like
lungs are filling with
his
blood.
lungs are filling with blood, whereas Robert Langdon is always kind of like an asshole because he ends up being right every time.
Yeah, I think it has to be Langdon because he's never like knocked down a peg. Like, dude, I don't know. I'm not going to give spoilers for this film that we're currently reviewing, but like he's not great at his job, seeing as they flew him in. Like, they would almost have done better just guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, he does a bad job, as we'll see coming up. Anyway, we have to keep moving. Robert is like, okay, in order to find, because like they're listening to the serial killer's like screed that gives them secret hints, and then like God, just like the path of illumination is the thing that they're looking at, and it's like we got to follow the path of illumination to find the 4 altars of science where they're going to execute these priests or whatever. And they're like, we need to talk to the Camerlengo because he's the only one who can give me access to the archives so I can read Galileo's weird book that apparently has a secret message on it.
This is where I thought I was watching a different movie.
Yeah. I mean, no, because there's literally like a fucking National Treasure-ass eye on that page, but like...
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway.
And we get a scene, the next scene, we get Ewan McGregor being the OG hot priest.
Oh yeah, no, he's extremely good looking in this one. He's his name is Patrick.
In this one.
I mean, listen, in all of them, but like he looks great. He's clearly the standout of this movie. He introduces himself as Patrick the Camerlengo, who is like, the Pope's stand-in while everybody's like choosing the new Pope. And like he's like he shows that he like has some understanding of science and he's like a learned person. And he's like gonna, he agrees to help Langdon. And he says that but before he does, he's like, Robert Langdon, do you believe in God? And Langdon's like, well, I don't think I'll ever understand God. My heart's not meant to. Faith is a gift I'm not meant to receive. And it's like, okay, sure, dude. Anyway, they finally...
So, yes.
So, yeah. I mean, I
love...
Go ahead.
I love how, convoluted his answer... only an agnostic could give an answer like this.
Yeah.
Well, kind of, but, not really, but sometimes, I might say, oh my God, and I might think, is there one? He really does do this circular reasoning in a way that I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, so they go down to the archives where they talk about this path, and Robert is being escorted by this grumpy archive guard who is a surprisingly important character throughout this. Let's see. They cut to the College of Cardinals, where they're about to be locked inside the Sistine Chapel. Where somebody, I think Patrick, is explaining to Strauss, the cardinal, who is also set up as a bad guy. And he's like, hey, there's gonna be a fucking bomb going off in 5 hours, and Strauss is like, well, our faith will sustain us. And then Patrick's like, their faith will not protect them from an explosion. And I know it's supposed to be a sick burn, but I think it does sort of get at the problem I have with Catholicism, which is that it is so stuck in its traditions and its ways that it could actually save so many more people if it budged a little bit. But that's a lot more nuanced than this book reading is actually supposed to be giving it.
Well, and I do have to say, I found it almost allegorical for, old... I'm very related to Ewan McGregor here going, why doesn't an old person give a fuck that young people are going to die? This old guy's... It's really easy if you're, in your late 70s, early 80s to be like, if God calls you, God calls you. Everyone's time is up.
The line they say is, we're all bound for heaven eventually. It's yeah, but me later is the thing.
We don't need to expedite the process. Yeah.
Anyway, so it cuts back to these Vatican archives, which they explain are kept at very low oxygenation levels to make sure that the books don't, get decayed or whatever. And then the escort is just like, I'm watching you. And then we cut to the assassin, who, for the life of me, I could not find a better comparison than a young John Green. Author of The Fault in Our Stars. If you've seen his early Vlogbrothers videos, and if he shaved, he'd look exactly like this assassin, which I think is hysterical.
Huh.
That's why he wasn't intimidating to me. I was trying to put my finger on it. I'm like, why do I feel like I could take this guy in a fight? Guys, I'm all of 5'6". My muscles are ornamental, but I feel like I could take this assassin in a fight.
Guys, please get us with enough cred on the internet that we can have my brother box author John Green.
Yes!
Yeah, no, we can just green siblings, and Aaron.
Yeah, it'll be great. I'll beat up the other one.
Oh man, listen, one day I hope to either be a famous enough writer or to move close enough in Indianapolis to meet John Green, so listen, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
First thing out of your mouth, hey, I've got a guy that wants to beat you up.
John Green's like 6 feet tall, so be careful. Anyway, so this John Green looking assassin is like, he's got all the cardinals in cages, and they're like, "Oh, forgive you for." He's like, "God forgive you for what you're doing," and he's like, "Listen, Padre, if God has issues, they won't be with what I've done. They'll be with what I'm about to do."
Danger zone.
Yeah, listen again. Like, it would be a lot more intimidating, and I'll get to the reason why this guy is not intimidating as opposed to what he was in the book, which is bad. But yeah, like, it'd be a lot more intimidating if this assassin didn't look like he wrote the best-selling YA novel of 2012. Anyway.
Well, in this book, in this movie, he actually did, too.
Yeah, canonically.
So not only is this set in the same universe as National Treasure, but also author John Green is an assassin.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so Langdon is in his archives with Vittoria, and he's like, listen, the number 503 is so important because if, the Illuminati loved the number 5 for some dumb reason. But Vittoria is extremely horny for this explanation, so it's fine. Anyway, like you said, Josh, they find this Eye of Horus on the 5th page, and they're like, wow, this means something, I guess. And then they're talking about, why is this inscription in English? And he's like, well, English was the language of free thinkers, which I think is very funny, that was ever...
I hated that line so goddamn much.
It's like, yeah, it definitely, I'm sure.
Yeah, because famously English was just...
The famously tolerant English. Anyway.
Famously, oh my god.
Anyway, Vittoria...
A history stroke if I continue this.
Okay, anyway, Vittoria is like, alright, we gotta go. So she just tears this priceless thing out of the page, and he's like, I can't believe you did that. And Olivetti is pissed that they do that too, but they gotta drive to Raphael's tomb at the Pantheon, because that's apparently where the first clue is. And this is where we see that Robert Langdon is completely useless, because like he's like, listen, Richter, bring all your Swiss Guard cops and, have them surround the building. And Richter's like, listen, this American is listening to a poem that he found in our archives, and he wants me to like send cops into a tourist area to do that. This seems dumb. And Robert Langdon's like, nuh-uh. Anyway.
I think this scene is just so chaotic in so many different ways, and I feel like I need to break it down. So first of all, Vivi has like chaotic bisexual energy tearing out a book, like a page from a book that is supposed to be this like, historical artifact. They have to like turn the pages with this little like tweezers, and she just rips it and like puts it in her coat and walks out. And then they're driving and like weaving in and out of no traffic. Like there's no traffic on the streets, but they're just still weaving. It's just such a chaotic scene.
It's great. Vittoria is the only good character in this.
Yes.
Besides Ewan McGregor. But so they're like trying to figure out how they're going to infiltrate the Pantheon without, attracting the attention of this assassin, which seems dumb. Like, I don't know why they have to be undercover, but whatever. But Vittoria's like, well, your cops are like wearing like G-men outfits. I'm just going to go in myself. And then Robert's the helpful person is like, you can't send a girl in there by herself. And then Richter's like, fine, you fucking moron, just go with her. And then they go and they infiltrate the Pantheon, and this is where we get the tour guide scene, because Robert's like looking around, he's like, oh, these are, the tombs are pointed east for sun worship because Christianity is a ripoff and Christmas is fake. But anyway, immediately after this like extremely smarmy like explanation, he's also like, oh shit, I found the wrong grave. And he runs up to the tour guide. He's like, wait, hey, is there a tomb that Raphael designed with, it's like an incredibly specific question, and the tour guide is just like, I don't know you, man, but I guess I'm a genius because I do know what you're talking about. And they have to like drive to a separate location. And they go underneath this church that's under construction. And after like 10 minutes of looking around, they open this like grate in the bottom of the floor, and they find the first priest in there. He has the weird, the ambigram thing like burned into his chest. It says Earth, and like his mouth has been packed full of dirt, and that's how he was, killed. And it's like, oh man, really, really wanged it on that one, Robert.
I mean, it was just like, it feels like a strange tonal shift, this scene, because just a moment earlier we have, Tom Hanks being just a dumbass, like, just, relying on nameless women to, like, rip off their work and take their ideas for his own. And then, out of the blue, we have rats eating the, like, fresh corpse of this priest. And it's like, oof.
We go straight from, like, himbo to, like, gross death scene.
It's just wild. And then, like, because Robert wanged it so bad, what's his name? Richter is like, I'm done listening to your horse shit. And then Robert's like, no, if you care about your church at all, you'll listen to us. And then Richter's like, what does your church do? Oh, that's right. You don't have one, idiot. It's just like, oh,
Gotti!
It's really weird. Anyway, Olivetti's like, well, that was I don't know why he just had to, do the fucking dick chop and walk away, but I guess I'll help you. And then Robert's like, look, an obelisk. Illuminatis love obelisks. So,
that is actually historically accurate, though.
And like they continue the search. And I forgot they named the floor the Demon's Hole, which they're trying to play off as very serious and scary, but it's absolutely not. What are you doing, Dan Brown?
It's so fucking funny.
It's like, oh,
is that from the book, though?
I think it is.
I'm pretty certain it is.
Only Dan Brown could have made a bummer.
I love that in this universe, and I'm including National Treasure because we have already gone over this is part of the same universe.
And Stars.
Not so much that one, but I love the idea that like all mysteries are just scavenger hunts. Like
that's when we'll finally figure out who killed JFK.
Yeah,
when we finally find the items.
Like, that's the thing. Now I kind of want to shift, our mission statement as a podcast, and now we can just do scavenger hunt mystery solving.
Oh, God.
Look, we are way more equipped for this than anyone in this film, except maybe Vivi.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see. We cut back to Conclave. All the priests are putting their votes in an enormous gold chalice. And they're all voting for themselves because apparently none of the cardinals have any ambition, and like priests do. And they're all waiting for the Preferi to be rescued, which is very funny. But we see the black smoke, which means no new pope.
It's white smoke you want, right?
Yes, white smoke is the one.
Okay.
So anyway, in this place where they found the dead priest, there's like statues that were sculpted by Bernini, also a secret Illuminati. And this angel is pointing southwest. And Rob Langdon's like, oh, southwest, that's got to be the next clue. He's like, I need a map showing all the churches of Rome. And I was like, yeah, dog, that'll narrow it down. But apparently they're like, okay, well, I guess Bernini designed St. Peter's Square, so we'll look for an air statue there. And then we get like actually one of my favorite scenes in this movie, which is like all of the international reporters talking about like the favorites for the Pope, and like you could tell like, because they give you little subtitles, but it's like the Spanish one is like saying like, oh, well, the Spaniard is the favorite to be the Pope. And the German one's like, oh, yeah, well, Cardinal Ebner, he is the one who's the German. He's the favorite to be the Pope. And I kind of like that. I thought that was cute.
I thought that was a nice little wrinkle, like especially for a film that seems not super thoughtful about any of its scenes. The fact that a throwaway scene was so thoughtful.
Well, I mean, Ron Howard directed this movie, which is
Yeah.
wild. Like, he's a real person, and he directed all these bad movies, so...
And like a real director.
Yeah, it's astonishing. Also...
He's not a robot made by
Yeah.
Dan Brown.
So also, there's a very funny protester argument going on in St. Peter's Square, because like there's like two sides of people like arguing, and it's not about abortion like you'd think. It's about stem cell research, which is how you know this book was written in the year 2000.
Yes.
God.
I went on a rant in my notes that's unnecessary about the whole stem cell argument. It's just... I mean, what did the old lady say? Oh man, I wish I had written it down. But the old lady is like, you're not, like...
Yeah, we're not meant to be God or whatever.
Yeah, like, we're not meant to be God. And it's like, okay, no one is saying that. And also, it is a gross misunderstanding about what stem cells are and how they're obtained. And like...
I will give this movie one thing. The protesters for stem cell research would in fact say that. They would in fact be like, can you believe they're taking Satan's stem and selling it?
I mean, that's fair.
Okay, so they get to St. Peter's Square. Robert Langdon checks his Mickey Mouse watch and notices that it's almost 9. Then he sees this carving on the ground, which is like a carving of the 4 winds. That's air-related, so I guess that's the second one. The protesters start to fight as the clock strikes 9, and we see them bump a little girl who drops her doll as the cops run by, and when she picks it up, it's stained with blood. And then she screams. And then it's Robert Langdon and Victoria that run over to the priest first, which is very funny because they're very far away from him. But they're like, "Oh no, it's the priest. He's bleeding out on the steps of some sort of art installation." And then Victoria tries to give him like CPR, and like his lungs have been punctured, so like the blood just like blows up in Robert's face, which I think is very funny. And he has been branded with the word air, which is fun.
This is actually how the professor died in God's Not Dead. That's how they knew.
You know, I have to be honest, like, I really was so excited in the first half of this scene, like with the girl picking up her doll and it being coated in blood and like the framing and the shots. It was such a reminder that the directing is not the problem with this film. It is the writing.
Absolutely.
Because
1000%.
when we get the blood blow up in Tom Hanks' face, I'm like, okay. Like, did we really need a slapstick moment when 30 seconds ago this little girl was letting out a blood-curdling scream because her doll was covered in blood from a cardinal?
Okay, Michael, but I loved that scene. I loved that scene, though.
It's funny. But like...
I just wish it had a...
Yeah, it's pretty good. So anyway, they regroup at Swiss Guard HQ. There's a note on this second priest that got murdered that apparently says that the Illuminati somehow were able to kill the Pope with his own heparin. And Richter dismisses this, saying that the Pope also had seizures, so it could have been any sort of medical problems, which seems extremely suspicious. Because especially like they're like, well, if something happened, we should autopsy the Pope. And then Richter's like, no, don't do that.
And this led me down a research rabbit hole in which, they said it was against Vatican law. And that is true.
I believe that, yeah.
Really?
Yes! It's considered desecration of a holy body. So you are not allowed to autopsy not only a pope, but also any member of the Catholic Church in the Vatican, unless, because they had to add a little addendum in the 1100s, unless they go on a crusade, then you're allowed to autopsy them.
Crossbow bolt.
It's like, I can pretty much fucking tell you how someone died in the Crusades.
Yeah, dog. I don't think we need to cut him open to see that his head's off.
He's missing the bottom half of his body. I can kind of guess what happened.
He has gangrene. We got it.
So anyway, we cut back to Cardinal Strauss being like, no, I still will not evacuate the Vatican. And like, apparently, like, because he's talking to another priest who, like, he's not supposed to be able to contact this priest. So I just have this really funny image of Cardinal Strauss, like, texting under the table. Just like, no, do not under any circumstances evacuate the Vatican. Everything's going great here.
Me as a cardinal sneaking in my phone.
Yeah. And it's like Patrick Ewan McGregor is very pissed that no one's listening to him because he's like, y'all, we're all gonna die. And then we have to let's see, we have to find the clue to the next scripture in the archives, so they go back to the archives. In the meantime, apparently the Vittoria's partner's journals were flown here from Geneva, so that way, because they had been in contact with someone doing research on the guard particle, so maybe the killer's identity is in these journals, so she begins to look through them. So the official story is that this dead priest that turned up was just a tourist from Dusseldorf who was mugged, which like seems like a bad story to tell when they later have to explain why the priest turns up dead like the next day, which is very funny. But we'll get to that later also. Let's see. So there's this archive escort cop who is like, like just like the exposition guy for Langdon to dump upon. And he's like, listen, man, the reason we're down here is because we're looking for Catholic assets because corporations keep track of their holdings. And then the guy's like, the Catholic Church is not a corporation. And they're like walking by a Mercedes-Benz as he says that, which I think is like kind of a nice touch. Cut to Camerlengo asking Vittoria in his office what the signs of a tinzaparin heparin overdose would be. And like, again, this is a symptom of the, genius thing that you said, Michael, which is like, she's a physicist. I don't know that she would know what a fucking heparin overdose looks like. But she's like, yeah, his tongue would turn all black after, the oral mucosal bleeding would congeal. So it'd only turn up after 7 days. And then Patrick asks her to come with him. And as they leave, one of the Swiss guards looks real shady at those journals.
I have a headcanon about this. So instead of being a genius, she's just a true crime addict. And like myself, she's able to like really diagnose causes of death just because all she does is listen to true crime podcasts in her free time.
I would believe that if this wasn't set in the year 2002.
Give us 10 more years and that's definitely exactly what happened.
Okay, so while they're down in the archives, Langdon's asking his escort if he smokes because he's like on the verge of passing out and there's like low oxygen down here. They look at this book about the ecstasy of St. Teresa and they learn that the statue was moved at the suggestion of the artist, which means like, oh, that's probably where it is. But right as they're learning which church it was moved to, the power goes off because they've been cutting the power to Vatican City systematically to try to like cut the power to the wireless camera because it's like lit by artificial light, so maybe that would help them find the bomb or whatever. It's real dumb. Anyway, but they also are like, wait, Richter knew we were down here and he cut the power. That's shady. Anyway, we're gonna die now. Cut to Patrick the Camerlengo taking Vittoria to see the Pope's body, which is very... It seems strange that so many of the guards that went with them would be cool with that. But, like, I guess Patrick is so charismatic, they're like, okay, fine, even, whatever you say. And he's explaining that the Pope adopted him after his parents were killed in a bombing. And, like, the Pope encouraged him to, like, go to the military and become a helicopter pilot. And he did, like, medevac for a while, which becomes relevant later. And, like, but he does explain that he was adopted, like, pretty young. So, like, he was raised in Italy, which makes it wild that he has an Irish accent.
That was definitely them going, can you do an Italian accent? And he was like, and they were like, alright, close enough.
Look, accent work is hard.
It's difficult.
It is. All of us play D&D. It's very difficult.
Okay. Anyway, Robert and the guard are stuck in this vault and they can't get out because the walls are lead lined. They can't call for help because the walls are lead lined. They're trying to break the glass. Langdon's just like flinging bookshelves at the glass, trying to crack it. And then he does what he does finally after like the first guard passes out. The thing that he probably should have done, which is shoot the glass. And then it is bulletproof glass, so it takes a while. He shoots it a couple times. It doesn't work. He gets back on another bookcase and falls one last time. It hits the glass. It doesn't break. There's like a really long shot of it just like, being quiet and dead. And then finally the window shatters. It opens and they're like, oh, he survived. And then like the light comes back on, which I thought was really good.
I do love how film portrays like loss of oxygen, because it's just not true. Like, the way human beings die without oxygen is very peaceful, very chill, and the fact that they always portray it as like this gasping for air, when really you just like kind of fall asleep.
Did you just murder someone, Michael?
No, I just, again, listen to nothing but true crime podcasts.
Okay.
Anyway, well, I'm calling the police as we speak, but besides that...
Oh, there's a murderer.
We cut back to Vittoria and Patrick in the Vatican grottos. We see the Pope's tomb, and then, like, Patrick, like, kneels down and he, like, prays for forgiveness in front of the Pope. And then they push open his sarcophagus, they reveal his body, and, like, everyone's doing the sign of the cross. And then, like, they open, like, the face covering, and they see that his tongue is just, like, jutting out of his mouth. It's just, like, this big black congealed mass. And they're like, yeah, he was definitely murdered. Meanwhile, Langdon and Olivetti, the super cop, speed off to the next church while the escort man finally gets a pack of cigarettes, which I thought was also great. There's so many great little touches in this film.
Just like so fun, like such a fun little scene.
Yeah.
And how best to celebrate the fact that you can breathe again with a pack of cigarettes.
Honestly, poetic. Also, Langdon is explaining to Olivetti that like they cut the power, and he's like, listen, Richter knew we were down there. Is it conceivable that the Illuminati have infiltrated the Swiss Guard? I love that line. It was so good.
It is an amazingly terrible line.
It's awesome. It's revealed that somebody stole Vittoria's journals. Later, Patrick breaks into conclave to tell all the cardinals that some shit is going down. He gives like this really inspirational speech about how the church is at war with the Illuminati, and he talks about how the church may have opposed science in the past, but science and religion aren't enemies. And he's like, let's make a more transparent and accountable power structure. And also evacuate St. Peter's Square and break conclave and tell everyone the Pope was murdered. Langdon and the cops arrive at the next church, which is on fire. Well, technically there's a fire inside it, and above which is roasting the next priest. And then, like, they're, like, trying to rescue him. Him and all the cops are, like, trying to get him down from, like, this spit roast. And then, John Green Assassin shows up and does some Assassin's Creed shit. Like, he has, like, a gun. He's just, like, gunning down all these cops. And he looks like he's doing a drive-by. And then he, like, gets in this knife fight with Olivetti. He does, like, a really sick, like, move where he cuts Olivetti's throat. And it looks badass. But then Olivetti dies. And Langdon does this really funny thing where he tries to cut the priest down, but instead he puts him more in the fire.
Yeah, he did not kill him, but he did not kill him.
So my favorite thing is, like, at this point, I was like, oh, they have to eventually save one of the cardinals, right? Like, are we just gonna, like, have, like, a hit list and all the cardinals die because Langdon's so bad at his job? Like, dude, no one asked you to do this. Like, you were way past what anyone has asked you to do. And the one part they did ask you to do, figure out what's happening, you've gotten the locations wrong every time.
Constantly fucking up.
This was where I was like, my Protestant nature showed up for a little while. And I thought we were supposed to root for all of the the cardinals to die. So I was a little confused.
I was just like, all right, at least one of them has to live. Like, we gotta have a pope after all of this.
So he can tell the other ones not to give up on the church.
That's, I mean, essentially what happens, but...
that is what happens.
So Cardinal Strauss comes out of conclave to tell Patrick that they're not going to evacuate. And he's like, anyway, this bomb, if it even exists, is, like, not the most important thing to worry about right now. But also, like, after Patrick like storms off, another priest comes up and he's like, "Hey, Cardinal Strauss, maybe you should stop being the great elector because like everybody's getting real nervous about the priests. Maybe you should be pope instead." And he's like, "Huh." And Cardinal Strauss is like, "Well then, if you insist." And it makes him seem like he is also in on this. Anyway, the firemen show up at this church and they're like, "Oh hey, Professor, how did you get into this like underground crypt?" And he's like, "Well, everyone else was getting shot, so I ran," which is the only like the first logical thing he has done in this entire series. Um, Later, Victoria goes to confront Richter, who does have her journals, which is shady, and he's not going to give them back. Um, and then we see the assassin who has the last priest in a van, and like he got shot in the last murder, so he's like treating that, and he's like, "I'm sorry, Father. It's a sin to kill with pain. It's a sin to kill without reason." And he's like, all the people that hire me, they make me a sinner," which is like a weird philosophical bent to take, dude.
Yeah, it really...
Capitalism makes us all make mistakes. I was behind him on this.
I guess.
I was just like, all right, that seems like the biggest fucking cop-out I've ever heard. And it's so like the cop-out of a religious person.
Mhm.
Like, my decisions and my choices are out of my hands because they're in the hands of people who hired me. And if God is all-knowing, he knew what I was gonna do. And it's like, okay, but like you don't have to murder people. Like,
God is making me do this because otherwise he'd stop me.
Anyway, Langdon, ever the sleuth, still does not want to give up this hunt for the last priest. He does a really stupid connect the dots on a map to find the last church. And then so like the cops are like, "No, the Richter wants you to come and like come back to Swiss Guard HQ. It's over, dude." And Langdon does this speech to the guy trying to arrest him. He's like, about how a real cop would actually try to stop this last cardinal. He's like, "Listen, if you want to start behaving the way real cops act, you'll come with me." And that's just like, Langdon, as a white Harvard professor, does not know how real cops act. But this speech sways this Italian policeman, and they go to the last statue. Meanwhile, Patrick is telling the cops to evacuate the Cardinals at 11:15. They roll up to this last Four Rivers statue, and they see this van roll up real shadily, just like waiting, I guess, like for the stroke of 11. He can't do it early, otherwise he won't get paid.
What do you guys think they were doing in the van beforehand?
I mean, I don't know.
I like to imagine they're just scrolling through Instagram.
I mean, I'm just imagining they're hotboxing the van.
They open it up. "Yo, we just picked a new pope."
White smoke comes out.
Or they're just having a like heart-to-heart about like
I mean,
the duality of man.
Yeah. And I would just love the scene where like you see the priest like take a hit off the blunt and be like, "Man, spirituality is fluid. Like, I have a lot of doubts about the strict hierarchy of the Catholic Church."
You're not so different, you and I.
Anyway, I'm gonna dump you in a fountain now. Bye.
And John Green is like, "Sorry, gotta get paid, dude."
In a different life, maybe we.
My looking for Alaska dividends are drying up, bro. Sorry.
This inspires me. What if the cancer patient wasn't the one who died?
Anyway. We cannot get into the ethics of Tifios. He dumps the last priest into the fountain. He gives kind of a cheeky salute to Langdon as he drives off. And Langdon dives into the fountain to try to free the priest. And like he also calls the people who are sitting in the cafes who watch this all unfold. Just like he's like, "Hey, please help!" And they're all just like, "Huh?" And then he does something that I don't know is scientifically accurate, but he takes one of the bubblers in the fountain and shoves it in the priest's mouth so that way he doesn't drown. And like, I don't. Maybe that would work. It seems like it would. It seems like it wouldn't.
I refuse to believe that.
Yeah, there is a 0% chance. Like,
all the other dudes, like 5 other dudes, help pull him out of the fountain. And then like it's revealed that this guy's name is Cardinal Baggia. and he's just like gasping for air, just like lucky to be alive. And Langdon's immediately like, "Hey, Cardinal Baggia, I know you're still tied to this fucking dolly, but like, hey, where are they keeping you?" And he's like, "The Castel Sant'Angelo." And yeah, like a bajillion cops swarm the Castel de Sant'Angelo. And I guess Richter is going to stay at the base for some reason, which is, again, super shady. Vittoria and Langdon talk about how they can't trust Richter because he took her journals. And they, for no reason, follow the military cops into the fortress. Again, completely out of their... Why are you here, ladies and gentlemen? Like, let the cops do their jobs.
You know, from having followed the Amanda Knox story very closely, I too do not trust the Italian police, so I would also follow them in there.
Fair enough.
Listen, everybody follow every cop you see. You take their eyes off them for one goddamn second.
Anyway, it's good that they did, because Langdon's great detective skills deduce that the angel statues are pointing to this canister, so they like follow these various angel statues that are throughout the Castel Sant'Angelo. They find the assassin's van, but then they're like, well, it's not here, so they run off, and Robert's like, no, it has to be here! And then they find a pentagram on the ground, which is, fun, and then they, like, go behind it, there's, like, a secret wall, they go through, like, this weird side basement or whatever, and they find the prison where this guy was keeping the cardinals, and then we cut to the assassin, who's, like, hiding in the shadows, but he gets this message that he has a final payment in a Volkswagen with a key taped to the wheel. I was like, oh, that man's going to be killed in a car bomb, obviously. And then we cut back to Richter being like, no, Patrick's not my dad. We can still have conclave if I say so. Don't evacuate anyone. Which, God, when it's revealed who the bad guy is, like, this makes no fucking sense at all. But, like, Victoria and Landon finally find this church that they're looking for. The assassin's waiting in the dark. And they also discover the empty case for a fifth brand, the one meant for the Pope. But, like, they're like, wait, but there's no Pope because he's dead. And then they're like, oh no, Ewan McGregor.
I had the same thought.
I mean, yeah, honestly, we were all really worried about him. So the assassin's then like, all right, step away, give me your cell phone, throw your cell phone in the fire, which I thought was pretty harsh, but like, yeah, I guess. And then anyway, the assassin talks about he's like the vengeance of God or whatever, because only religious people hire him, which is funny. And he warns them all to be careful because they're dealing with men of God.
He's on Christian Mingle,
I guess. So then we get this shot of Richter locking himself in the room with Patrick the Camerlengo while he's praying. And then Ewan McGregor's like, have you come to make me a martyr? And it seems like, Richter is about to do some shit to Ewan McGregor. But then, like, Langdon and Victoria use these secret tunnels that just magically lead back to the Vatican to try to save Patrick. The assassin rappels down the castle walls, gets in his Volkswagen, and just obviously it's a car bomb. How is this man a professional hitman? You never get in cars that your client procures for you, idiot. What are you doing? Haven't you played a single video game in your life?
Clearly no.
Yeah,
no, it's very obvious no. And I feel like that, of all the scenes, was like the shark jumping moment, because I'm like, all right, this guy's not a professional.
No, he's a fucking... he's a red.
He's a young adult author who just got caught up in the wrong crowd.
I love the idea that he doesn't look like John Green, but is 1000% John Green.
Okay, anyway, the grumpy escort cop hears Robert and Victoria pounding on the secret tunnel door, opens it up, and they're like, hey, the Camerlengo is in trouble, and he's like, okay, I guess we'll go rescue him. They come into the room, and they see Richter standing over Patrick with a gun, and Patrick's like, he's got a gun! And the cops do not question anything, they just immediately open fire on Richter, just perforating the dude. And then, maybe the most confusing scene in this, we see this other secondary priest run up, and then he's like, you sanctimonious bastard, and Patrick points at him, he's like, Illuminatus, and the cops are like, oh, okay, and they shoot him too for no reason.
Look, the only explanation is that Ewan McGregor passed a charisma check. Like, that's the only thing that makes any sense.
I mean, listen, his shirt is off. He does have this, like, brand with the Pope's keys on him, so it, like, makes sense. It's like, oh, okay, got it. Anyway, Patrick's like,
And in
okay.
that moment, I was like, am I Catholic now?
That's all it takes.
Listen, if Ian McGregor was the one doing their PR, a lot more people would be Catholic.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Fortunately, that is not the case.
Unfortunately, we need things such as Jesus Christ Superstar to help evangelize the faith, apparently.
The greatest thing that has ever happened to Christianity.
Oh.
Including Jesus.
Cool. Anyway, Patrick orders this evacuation. He's like, we gotta get out of here before the bomb happens. Richter, still alive, in his last breaths, like, I guess, hands landed this golden key. And then Victoria's like, wonder if this brand means something. And they're like, well, normally the keys aren't like facing up like that. But then they're like, but St. Peter was crucified upside down, on Vatican Hill. Vatican Hill? Maybe that's where the bomb is. So they go to Vatican Hill, I guess, which is like underneath wherever they are. We get this shot of a helicopter coming in to evacuate the older cardinals as they're all sort of escaping. All the good guys are now in this necropolis under the basilica. It's 11:53 right now, and they find the antimatter. Hooray! Victoria's like all about to replace the battery to this canister and save the day, and then she's like, "Oh shit, it's cold down here, huh?" And they're like, "Yeah, why does that matter?" And she's like, "Well, cold saps battery life, so we probably don't have enough time to actually change this battery." And then Patrick is like, "Oh fuck." So he, like a running back, seizes the canister and just does like an incredible dash through the crowd, out of this necropolis, out through the squares of the Vatican, into this helicopter. Also, everyone's ignoring the evacuation order for no goddamn reason, which is really funny. They're all just like, no, I think we'll stay here and see if this bomb threat is true.
Again, very accurate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, a pre-corona world, I would have been like, oh, come on. Now I'm like, yeah, that fucking tracks.
That's a fair point.
There would be a crowd of people standing around it going, but what if it doesn't?
Actually, we need a lot of people to be blown up by the bomb so that way we all have bomb immunity.
Crack it open, guys. Crack open that cold one.
If this happened in America, they would be like, it is my right to be exploded.
So Patrick runs out into the square. Apparently he knows the guy who's piloting the helicopter because he addresses him by his first name. And then Patrick, who, as we have previously established, they set up the gun on the wall, so he flies the helicopter into the air, straight upwards. And there's like, this is actually like probably my favorite shot in the movie because like he flies up and everyone's like, oh my god, he's gonna blow it up in the air to save us all. And like it's kind of cool because like we see the dark and stormy clouds and like everyone's just like, oh wow, this is a heroic sacrifice. And then like he jumps out with a parachute and it's like, oh wow, he set it to like fly higher in the air so he could escape. And then this fucking huge explosion goes off and like there's a shockwave that just fucking flattens everything. Like, and there is no way that not like eight old people didn't immediately just get their heads cracked open and die. Like, because it's like knocking over cars and shit. Like, it's such a huge blast.
The unsung, like, body count of this scene would be in, like, the dozens, at least.
I'm just saying that we had an entire investigation off of a dude who killed some birds in the air and then landed in the Hudson River without, like, really killing anyone. Can you imagine the amount of trials and the amount of just... That's his life now, of answering questions. I was kind of hoping he would just drop the bomb from the helicopter. Like, he just wanted a really good view of it.
Anyway, bye, bitches!
Y'all see Predator?
But like the explosion itself is fucking beautiful. Like it's like this. It's very much reminiscent of like the like pillars of creation. Like a lot of like if you ever looked at like NASA shots of space, because it's like very like a lot of clouds that are full of color and like I mean I guess it's probably a direct analog to the pillars of creation because God, particle, and creation or whatever. But it looks really cool in the shot, and like Patrick, who is the closest to this shockwave, is actually fine. He gets slammed to some buildings and shit, but like everyone catches him, and then they see he's alive, and they applaud his cool stunt, and everyone's like, "Wow, this is this is incredible. The grumpy escort cop runs into Conclave, and he's like, hey, the Camerlengo just saved everyone. And Cardinal...
Except for the people he did.
Except for all the people that immediately got their brains shot out of their noses. But we can't talk
And
about
the
that.
people he landed on, which, like, did not look okay.
Yeah, he added a lot of helicopter shrapnel to the bomb.
But Cardinal Strauss is like, oh, good, praise God, love that he's still alive. But then everyone in the conclave is like, maybe that guy should be Pope after all. And they we'll get into acclamation by adoration, but whatever. Come back to Vatican Police HQ. They're treating Patrick. Vittoria says the worst thing she thought would happen with her antimatter research is that it would fall into the hands of energy companies, which, like, I actually thought about, and I was like, actually, that's way worse. Like, if, antimatter doesn't actually do that, but it would be so terrible if, like, fucking... Who do I use? Duke Energy was like, yeah, we just have an antimatter generator now, and it's going to cost you $200 a month to get your power.
Yeah, can you imagine, like, breaking news? Antimatter spill in the Pacific Ocean. All life there is dead.
Oops.
Look, Dominion has done enough to the Chesapeake. They don't need anything else.
And I can't wait to see, I support big antimatter.
God. Fucking Sarah Palin being like, it's our God-given right to blow ourselves up as long as we get a tax rebate.
Oh my god, sometimes you just have to invade another country to get their antimatter.
God in heaven.
Make antimatter great again.
God damn it. So Robert is talking to Vittoria, and he's like, you know what, your work is still valuable and important. Go back and change the world. And there's like a cut of you can hear the crowd singing Ave Maria back in the square, which I really liked. I thought that was nice.
Oh, I hated it.
Yeah, well, you're a fucking...
I know I shouldn't hate that scene, because it's, like, coming together after, like, this traumatic thing, but I'm just, like, a lot of people died.
Yeah, dog, if you don't think that would 100% happen in real life, you do not know Catholics.
Yeah,
I do, and I don't like them.
Fair enough.
Well, I don't know how else to explain that to you, bud.
I love this 30 Years War because, once again, I was like, it's a fine scene.
I like it.
I just, like, love that I'm consistently somehow neutral on the two of your war.
Well, it's because you're a centrist.
Gotta hear both sides. Of the 30 Years War.
Both sides are awful.
Both sides are equally bad, guys. They're so clearly the same.
Yeah.
I can't even tell them apart.
To be clear, we're talking about in the 30 Years War and not in the current political climate. There is a clear good guy, even though it has problems. Anyway.
Yes, and Nazis are bad. That shouldn't be controversial.
Yeah, I'm anti-Nazi, and I don't care who judges me.
And I'm anti-pro-Nazi.
You take from that what you will. Strauss, meanwhile, is like arguing with all the cardinals in conclave, and he's like, listen, he's too young to be pope, which is actually just straight up untrue. Any Catholic man is eligible to be pope.
Y'all had a kid. Y'all had like a 12-year-old pope.
Yeah.
You guys had Jude Law being the sexiest pope we ever had in HBO's hit The Young Pope.
I would argue, oh god, who's a hotter pope?
No one.
No. Ian McGregor or Jude Law. Just if you had to pick a hot pope.
Let me just send you the little gif of Jude Law as the young pope.
Like, I've seen plenty of gifs of Jude Law as the young pope, and it does do it for me. But Ian McGregor, though.
I'm sorry, but I'm just dropping a link in our Skype chat right now because this is a point against you. And yes, I do think that everyone needs to watch this. It's 3 minutes, but you know what? I will be tweeting it out from our account because everyone needs to see this scene.
Okay. I'm gonna... You know what? You know what? You
Okay.
You've got a point.
Poor Aaron.
So Strauss is like, I'm not going to call a ballot on this matter. But then another priest is like, well, you stepped down from your position as great elector to be eligible for pope. So it's not up to you. and then they're like, anyway, we're gonna do acclamation by adoration. So because like if we all say his name as he comes into the Sistine Chapel, that makes him Pope, I guess. Strauss is sad that he won't be Pope, so everything is coming up Ewan until Victorian and Langdon go look through the journals in Richter's old office, and she sees the journals of her old partner, and Langdon uses the key that Richter gave him to access Richter's computer. And he's like, well, the Pope had seizures. Maybe he had a camera installed in that office where Richter and Patrick had that fight. And then this is where we get the big reveal that the Camerlengo Patrick is the bad guy all along, and like he was the one who poisoned the Pope, and he was the
little
one,
M. Night moment.
Yeah, like he was the one who hired this assassin, and like.
But we have to reveal the real villain of all of this. This entire film, there's one villain that is revealed in this scene,
and we'll say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. The Catholic
the rewind
Church.
sound.
Oh,
the fact that we are dealing with the most technologically clear videos, like, God, we would all kill for the security footage. It's so crisp and beautiful in sound quality, and we get the little VCR rewind sound.
That's so fucking funny. I can't believe I missed that.
I was laughing so hard I was crying during this scene. I had to pause it.
How did I miss that?
I was just so caught up in the mystery that I ignored the VCR rewind.
You ignored the true villain.
My stomach hurts. Oh my god, that's so dumb. Why did they do
This movie
that?
rules. So
oh my god.
Apparently the reason that Patrick did all this bad stuff is because Silvana was Vittoria's old partner was like talking to
Isla Stave.
Isla Stave was talking to the Pope about how he thought the God particle would scientifically prove the existence of God, which is dumb. But like Patrick is like, no, that's bad. So the motivation in the book is different, and we'll get to that at the end. But like, is that what you guys thought that his motivation was?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I was like, there has to be a different explanation for this. But honestly, I'm just gonna be totally honest. The rewind sound just took me out of it. Like, I was out of the film. My disbelief was fully like unsuspended. It was back, and I was like, whatever, sure. I guess he wants to prove God particle. They mentioned it in the first scene, so I guess we have to tie back to it. Because this film, there is an artistry, and I'll get into this in my like actual review, of leaving loose ends. Like, sometimes you don't need to tie every single loose end. This film refuses that premise and says, so we mentioned God particle, so we have to tie that back in. We showed Tom Hanks swimming in a Speedo, so we have to show that he can swim again in the end. And like every single scene that is laid in the first quarter of the film has to be tied in, and I just don't think all of them were necessary, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it's that's just writing, baby.
You need to make sure that every single thread not only is explored but painfully examined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's why he did this big conspiracy and branded himself and made it look like Richter did it, and then blamed that other priest because Richter showed him the journals, and the cops were willing accomplices in all this. Thanks, cops. Anyway, Langdon and Vittoria show the footage to Cardinal Strauss. So when Patrick arrives at the Sistine Chapel, they're all waiting for him, and like he starts to slink away and walk really slowly, and then Cardinal Strauss is like, gently, but within our walls to the cops. So like, it's like, be nice when you're arresting this Pope murderer. And so like this last scene, Patrick stumbles out into St. Peter's Basilica, which is, the big super church that the Vatican, is built around. And the cops are all like closing him around him. And he makes a run for, I had to look this word up, but it's the baldacchino, which is just a cool word for super altar. But like he runs there and he douses himself in oil and sets himself on fire, and that's the end. That's how he does it. And the official story is that Patrick died due to his internal injuries during his cool stunt. And also, the 3 cardinals that died earlier just got caught up in that big fire at the church. Whoops. It is funny that they're going to canonize Patrick, which is great.
I love it because who's gonna fact check them if you can't do autopsies? Like, doesn't matter that this guy has earth coming out of his mouth. He was obviously killed in a fire.
Makes perfect sense. So in the last scene, we see Langdon talking with Strauss. Apparently Cardinal Baggia, the guy that got dumped in the fountain, is going to be the one who's made Pope. Also, this conclave is like less than a day long, which makes it like the shortest conclave in history. So that's cool. But Strauss, as a way to thank him, presents Langdon with this original Galileo text he needed to finish his dweeb book. And then when he asks that Langdon, he's like, "When you write of us, and you will write of us, I ask that you do so gently. Religion is flawed because men are flawed, even this one." And like, I liked this, but also my second reaction was, if only that was the extent of the church's wickedness. Like, I could get behind that message. Like, if it's only like, we're just flawed people and we make bad choices sometimes, instead of just like centuries of abuse, but we don't.
If the only people the Catholic Church was killing were the Catholics.
It really is a moment of, this film really almost made you think, yeah, I'm sympathetic. Until you think of reality.
Until you, realize that all of this is fake. But yeah, the last shot, Strauss thanks God for sending Langdon to protect the church, and Langdon's like, "I don't believe God sent me," and Strauss says, "Silly boy, of course he did."
Tricks are for kids.
But yeah, then it ends with a shot of Baggia greeting the crowd in St. Peter's Square, and it's kind of nice. So I have a couple fun facts from the book, but what do you guys have anything to add?
It's a weird movie. It's weird. Very strange. I know that's not a clever thing to say, but like, especially when I was I really confused this movie with a lot of things it wasn't. One of them being National Treasure, and then I was like, oh, this is the one where it turns out Jesus hooked up. This is the movie that said Jesus fucks.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Da Vinci Code.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. We'll watch that someday.
We're definitely watching that one.
And they started killing popes, and I'm like, okay, guys,
go on.
I see you. You continue. I'm intrigued. Not enough pope killing. I got my rating for later.
I have mine too.
Excellent. Let's see. This book. So the fun facts from the book. So this book is actually supposed to take place before the Da Vinci Code. I think it might have been the one that was. I think it was published before the Da Vinci Code. But like, so like all this stuff about Robert being an enemy of the church hasn't technically happened yet. So that's fun. One thing that is, you probably can tell by the way that Langdon's character is portrayed, is that he's also like, a guy that hooks up with his female counterpart at the end of the thing, because of course he does. In the book, he hooks up with Victoria. In the Da Vinci Code, spoiler alert, he hooks up with the great granddaughter of Jesus, which is very funny also.
Yep.
But like, the line that I remember from Angels and Demons is, "Have you ever slept with a yoga master?" Victoria asks him. And 12-year-old me was like, that doesn't make sense. How would being a yoga master make sleeping with someone more enjoyable? Like, is it just like they're like really considerate of the amount of space they're taking up in the bed? I guess.
Oh my god.
Oh, Aaron, you're so pure.
Yeah.
You're the opposite of this group's bad boy.
That's true.
Can we get Aaron a pin that says the podcast goodest boy?
Yeah. Aaron really is too pure for this podcast in the best way.
Yeah,
Which means we have to kill him off. He's too good for this world.
that's right.
So I think you are chaotic evil. You are like you're too bad for this podcast. I'm the sweet spot, you guys.
That's right.
I'm the group's bad boy. I don't know what you want.
God, I hate that for us. So the worst part of this book, I believe, is so the assassin who looks like John Green in this book in this movie is not in the book. He is a Middle Eastern brown guy who is like super horny and loves to abduct women, and he does hashish because assassins, they come from hashish, blah blah blah. And he dies by getting pushed off a ledge and falling onto a stack of cannonballs, which is really fun.
I wish they would have kept that only part.
That would have ruled. Yeah, they could have just had Vittoria kick him off like any building. That would have been much better than the stupid.
But I want to see him land in cannonballs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have a very big compliment to this film that is purely accidental, and to the books, actually.
Oh no.
I am so grateful that they came out when they did, because as I noted in my notes, Q would have come themselves over all of this, like, Illuminati and, like, all of that, like, New World
Order. Oh my god,
Order
you're
shit.
so right.
So
Yeah.
I am grateful this happened already, and, like, they kind of missed the boat on it, because imagine, just, like, close your eyes and imagine in the year of our Lord 2020, a film with Tom Hanks, which is at the center of their, like, crazy fucking conspiracy, stars in a movie about taking down the Illuminati, which is taking over the Catholic Church. Like, I don't want to live in the world where Q gets a hold of that.
Oh my god, you're so right.
Oh, that's so bad. There would be think pieces made connecting a current
New York
politician.
Times editorials.
We don't agree with it. We just think it's important to put it out there.
Oh, Christ on a bike. My last fun fact is that, okay, so the motivation for Patrick being a Pope murderer in this movie is pretty stupid. In the book, it's a little bit more convoluted. So in the book, he learns that the old Pope conceived a son with a nun, and he's like, oh no, the Pope broke his vows, I have to murder him, I guess. It turns out that son was conceived by artificial insemination, and that son is Patrick.
Why does this feel like a soap opera storyline? And he has an evil twin.
Named Matrick.
Played by the same actor, but they're never in a shot together because they can't afford the CG.
Oh my god.
And he has an eye patch.
Listen, Dan Brown's books have some wild plots. In the sequel to the Da Vinci Code, they have to find another weird murderer who his whole, like, grand master plan is to get his dad to murder him with a meteor knife on a very specific altar so he can become God.
I'm confused about what you just said.
No, it's not the latest new JRPG from Square Enix.
Also, I want to point out, like, popes having kids has happened
Countless
every
times.
time. Every pope has a kid.
Opus Dei is going to murder you for that.
Actually, that's not true, but...
It might be the most sacrilegious thing I've ever said, which I'm very happy about. Every pope has had a kid. I don't think any pope has been so horny that they were like, ooh, girl, let me come in this little test tube, and then they're gonna...
If somebody else uses another word for ejaculate, I'm gonna die. We've hit our cum counter.
You're welcome for pushing us closer and closer to that limit.
Oh my lord.
Oh, Aaron, I've got some terrible nicknames I can drop here if you want to just have a fun time editing later.
Nope.
Oh no.
So, what would you rate this film, gentlemen?
I want to go last.
I think I'm gonna give it 15 years out of a 30 years war, because they only killed, like, one pope and, like, a couple cardinals. They should have done better.
I'm going to give it the 12th Station of the Cross, because I think it was a flawed execution.
I am going to give it 2 angels pointing at each other in the Spider-Man meme.
Stupid. Stupid show.
It's a dumb show.
All right. So, Michael, next week it's your turn to hurt us. What are you going to do for next week?
So some background for our listeners. I have decided to kind of commandeer the show a little bit because we are entering a stretch that is just amazing. This week is my birthday, and then Halloween is right around the corner, which will coincide with my next pick. So we are entering Michael's horror extravaganza, and we are starting with the 2018 documentary Demon House, which
No!
which actually is about this house in Indiana, no less.
Oh, fuck.
Which was the site of a really, really serious haunting where there were like hundreds of cases. This story happened in 2011. Story was publicized in 2014. There's like CPS involved. There's like all sorts of things. And this film stars Zach Baggins, who is the Ghost Adventurers guy, who bought the house for $35,000 and is investigating.
That's actually a steal.
Yeah.
That's a steal. Oh my god. Michael, legally you have to tell me right now, is this a jump scary movie or is this a I will be up late at night movie?
So this is a film that I've never seen, so we're all going to participate in it together.
God damn it. I'm hoping it's actually a comedy.
I don't think that's going to be the case.
I don't think so either. But I just wanted to like warm everyone up to the idea that we will be watching some horror films coming up and not just documentaries. I already have like my next 3 picks.
Jesus. Oh.
He's not here, clearly, Aaron.
No. Josh, this is why we need to end our fucking Catholic Protestant feud and like team up against Michael because we're both little scaredy cats.
Yeah, Aaron, but then you'll say some shit like, oh, the Protestants aren't cool, and I'm like, really?
Listen, we just talked about the inherent gothness of Catholicism. Protestants are not cool.
No, but you know who's even less cool? The Poindexters over there in the Vatican.
And you know who are the coolest? Demons. So that's who we're going to focus on next.
All right, gentlemen.
The 3 genders.
Where can people find you on the internet?
I am at Green History on Twitter.
I'm at Michael's Diamonds on Twitter.
I'm at AaronSXL on Twitter. You can also follow my other podcast at Mortified Pod. Me and Layla, there's going to be an episode going up today as we're recording this, in which Layla and I watched Zatch Bell and Yu-Gi-Oh! And both of those shows are so fucking wild. It's incredible. Please listen to that.
And me and one of my friends started a podcast where we watch movies that the other one will hate, and we watched The Lighthouse, a movie where the director wanted to turn the titular lighthouse into an actual penis, but the studio didn't let him. So watch that if you want to hear about Willem Dafoe coming on Robert Pattinson's face.
Okay, well, if that description made you want to cry, just remember that it is okay to cry, because even Jesus wept. We'll see you next week.